The show must go on.
Yes, you're right. Okay, let's see here. Terrific. So I think, Eric, what do you think? Can we get started? Okay. All right, so we just wanted to give everyone a few minutes to make sure that they can log on, but I think we'll get started because it's a little bit after noon. And so first, I'm just going to introduce myself, and then I'll introduce our speaker for today. So I'm Lynn Kallenbach, and I'm the Department Chair for Management and Business Studies here at the College of St. Scholastica. And I'm very pleased to introduce Jim Drennen, who is going to be our speaker today, doing his webinar on marketing. And as I do that, I want to just give you a little bit of his background. So I'm going to read his bio so that you can have an understanding, or at least a sense of what his past experiences are, which might help set the stage for today. Okay, so Jim's industry experience cuts across manufacturing, distribution, operations, and marketing. His interest in the field of customer experience involves deploying the voice of the customer and can be framed by this quote: "Nothing in business is more exhilarating than discovering and fulfilling the needs of a target market so that customers become loyal beyond belief." Jim earned his BS from Heidelberg University and an MBA from the University of Toledo. For 16 years, Jim has been an adjunct faculty member at the College of St. Scholastica as an instructor for marketing strategy, digital marketing, logistics, among other courses. Jim is on the board of directors for the Manufacturers Alliance. I am now happy to turn it over to Jim. Thank you. Thanks everyone for being here today.
Thank you, Lynn. I blushed a little bit. I'm going to share my screen, and while I'm doing so, I'd like to remind everybody that this is probably the most fun you're going to have all day. So just keep that in mind and enjoy it. And we're sharing screen now. And let me move you off to the side so I can find my slides. There we go. So as Lynn said, I work for the College of St. Scholastica adjunct faculty, 16 years. I taught classes on the St. Paul campus and now online. So I've been a business practitioner during that whole time. So I had a day job plus teaching. I got into teaching because it kept me current in my field, but also offered the opportunity to give back and be a mentor to eager learning adults. So I really appreciate the opportunity working for St. Scholastica for all these years. Of all the institutions I've been associated with, this school lives its values. They proclaim them and they live them. So it's really cool to be associated with it. So today we're going to talk about marketing the power of wow. This is going to be a little bit of preaching and a little bit of teaching. So you're going to see some slides that have some detail, but my job will be to break it down and make sure that we cover all this stuff. So it's going to feel a little bit like a mini lecture with some interesting insights, I think, into products and service development and this whole notion of wow factors and what we've learned through neuromarketing and neuroscience about the importance of having wow factors baked into our products or services before they get launched into the public. So the images here, I want to give
just
credit
a heads
to.
up, Jim,
Yeah.
we're not seeing your slideshow yet.
Oh, you're not?
We've got your web browser showing right now.
Well, let me stop sharing. Let me share screen again. Thanks for saying that. Is it up now?
Yeah, there you go.
All right. I'm not going to repeat all that. Thanks. So today's topics we're going to cover, yes, there is a marketing process. This is going to be a little bit of the teaching and preaching that comes into this. And then we're going to dig into what do customers really buy? A lot of times, even experienced marketers lose sight of what customers are really buying. And often it's nothing to do with the product, the tangible product and its features, it's something else completely. We're going to get into that a little bit. That's a really important concept. Then we're going to look at the Kano model. Americans call it Kano, the Japanese probably call them Kano, but I'm going to say Kano model and these wow factors, which is just worthy of some time to digest this model, and then to understand how this model, which is sometimes taught in the quality world and engineering world, but how in designer world, how it can actually impact marketing greatly. And at the end, I'm going to ask you in chat to share any key takeaways that you have from this. So by the way, any questions you have, you can put them in chat. Eric will be monitoring the chat as well as I will during the presentation, but at the end, we'll ask what key takeaways to put into the chat. So why is this Subaru up here? Well, we talk about a wow factor. I bought a Subaru made in West Lafayette, Indiana, American labor, Japanese American management. When I took the car home, I drive in at nighttime. When I started making a right turn, I noticed that the right fog light came on and it illuminated the entire right side of the road and around the corner I was turning. And then when I went back to the center position in the steering wheel, that light went out. So I drove around the block, turned left, and the left one came on. That's an unexpected wow factor that nobody even talked to me about at the dealership, that to this day, every time I get in the car and it's night and I'm driving and that feature comes on, I smile. I've told 30 or 40 people about it. I'm telling, another 6 or 7 right now. It's a wow factor. It's unexpected. It makes me think like this about that brand. If they take the time and effort to put something this cool, it's a minor feature, into a car, I wonder if they're probably not doing the same with all the other features in that car. And so it built trust, it built loyalty, it makes me smile, makes me happy, makes me feel cool that I've got something that nobody else does or very few people do. So that's an example of what we're talking about as a wow factor. The problem with that we're going to get into is customers. You could have asked me in so many surveys or focus groups, I would have never come up with this idea. So we have to also better understand, where do we find these wow factors out in the marketplace? If customers aren't willing to or able to talk about them, where do we go? So we're going to cover that in a little bit of detail as well too. So here's the preaching side a little bit and some teaching. There is a marketing process, and this is adapted from Farrell and Heartline. They are leaders in the field marketing text. I've used some of their editions over the years in teaching marketing strategy and just marketing itself. I want you to look at this for a second. The first step in marketing is more an academic exercise called segmentation. We like to segment the markets because we want to group segments that share like concerns or like desires so that we can later on target them and reach them. So this is more of an academic exercise. We can do it demographically. Hey, are you urban or you're rural? We could do it, age, are you boomer or you Gen X? We can do it psychodemographically. We can do it in many other ways, geodemographics. In some texts I've taught, there'll be 5 to 9 different segmentation bases, they're called. And so we like to do this exercise. This is where big data, AI, and other things are coming into play. We're looking for relationships. We're looking for correlation. We're looking for markets that are out there that we might not otherwise be aware of. So there's a lot of information going into this exercise, but it's truly that. It's an exercise. The first act of marketing is targeting. So after we've segmented the market, the first act we have to do is decide which markets are we going to target. And this is a very critical thing to understand, so that we aren't just working in a vacuum and it's everybody. Even if you're making chapstick, you're still targeting people with chapped lips or everybody with lips, but you still have a target market, right? And this is where value creation comes in. Once you've decided, you've segmented the market by so many things. By the way, another segmentation that we sometimes look at is common needs. So for instance, diet food can appeal to boomers as well as Gen X or Gen Y. So the needs wanted also is a segmentation based that sometimes we can cut across otherwise separate market segments and actually join them about the benefits they're seeking. So now we come into value creation, and here you're going to see something called the marketing mix come into play. What we always teach in school, the 4 Ps, or you might see it the 5 Ps. I'm going to show you a more modern version of that in a second. But so now we look at what's the product or service that we're going to offer that target market. So we're going to put the customer at the center of that decision. And right up front is where we want to position. We don't wait till the end of this process and tag a cute tagline on it. We want to begin to position in the minds of the customer against the competition at this stage. At least work on the rough draft of what that positioning statement is going to be about that product. We found that if you don't do that early on, things get muddled and not clear, and things get lost in the excitement of developing products or services and launching them. That we have to all of us be clear in mind what we're doing. I'm going to give you a great example here. We all know Olive Garden. For years their positioning statement was, "When you're here, your family." The new one that they came out a year or two ago is "We're all family," something like that. But look what they've done in that simple statement. When you're here, your family. I position in the minds of the customer to understand that when you go to an Olive Garden, we can handle large groups. We have unlimited salad bowls that you can pass around. We have breadsticks that can go around unlimited. We give you big portions that you can take food home after the dinner or the supper or lunch. And we're against the competition. We're not looking at table turnover. We're not looking at making a rushed experience. When you're here, your family, take all the time you want. They've executed so well that even the lighting in the room, they lower the lights over the tables, so you really can't see all the other tables. You might be able to hear them, but the tables are big. There's linen tablecloths. There's a sense of no rush. They even changed their metrics. They don't measure table turnover like most restaurants do. They measure profit per visit. So even the metrics are aligned with this positioning statement. All of that is done because they knew who to target. Large family gatherings for a bar mitzvah or for a confirmation or for a graduation. People don't want to cook. They've designed everything in their operation to support that. And they're against the competition. It's something that you wouldn't expect at a really nice, fancy Italian restaurant on Canal Park, or you would something much better than you expect like at a fast food. So I hope you understand that positioning and how important this is. This is, to me, where marketing really earns its keep in the value creation side. And if it's not marketing, it has to be an entity within an organization that has this ability to marshal the resources to target and then begin our product service development and then our positioning. Then we get into what's called, hold on here. Well, it's hung up. There we go. Then we get into the other things we teach in marketing. So the 4 Ps are typically, I'm omitting people here as I'm going through, and that's probably locking my screen up. But this is where the 4 Ps come in. So you've got price, place, and promotion. And then the first P, and I think this is the order too, by the way, it's always product. What are you serving your customer? Price, because that's the determinant of profit and also an indicator of value and quality. And then place, where do customers find the product? And then promotion. And so you can see that this is marketing execution, but I want to point something out here. If you've done your targeting and product development and positioning well, look how easy the other P's fall right into place. If I'm Olive Garden, what's my price point going to be? It's not going to be the Italian restaurant in Canal Park. It's not going to be even Culver's. It's going to be between the two. Where's my place? I'm not going to be doing it downtown Duluth or Minneapolis. I'm going to probably be out in the suburbs where families are. How do I promote? I promote where those families might see their information, what type of TV shows or movies they're looking at or films they're looking at. So if you've done this well, the rest of the marketing mix falls right into place. So we give so much attention to the promotion side, social media, websites, LinkedIn, and we spend a lot of time there, but really the time on the value creation side, if we do that right, the rest of the stuff is execution. It falls right into place. Now, some texts are translating the P's, which are developed by Cotter and other folks in the 70s with the 4 C's. It's not as common, but it kind of makes sense. We're talking about the customer instead of the product. We're talking about the cost the customer has to endure in order to receive that product. And that can be a psychological cost, a time cost, a monetary cost. Instead of place or distribution, we talk about convenience, make it easy for me to do business with you, make sure I can find you wherever you are. And then instead of promotion, which sounds like you're on a mountaintop screaming through a megaphone, we're talking about two-way communication. So you can see how the shift from the P's to the C's puts the customer much more at center versus the organization itself. Yep, so it's hung up again. So let me go back, and I don't know why it's hanging up on the slides, but here we go. So I'm going to share screen again and just wrap up one more thing about this model, and you should be seeing that right now. And that's this. What does this lovely pig signify? Lipstick, sunglasses, pearls. If we don't clearly differentiate our product, which includes wow factors up in the front part of this process, we're essentially, just putting dressing on a pig. No offense to pigs, but we are essentially trying to make up for deficiencies potentially at the product level by promoting the heck out of it. And history has shown that that generally doesn't work, because once customers come in contact with the product and realize it doesn't live up to its promise, that's the opposite of building brand loyalty. So you're better to make sure that you got the house bright before you start doing all the promotions. So, all right. So we've covered the marketing process. I think you get a good sense of what we're talking about. So we're going to focus on this wow factor, which centers on product and service development more than anything for the rest of this presentation. So here's the other thing. What do customers really buy? When you see this Krispy Kreme donut conveyor rolling at you, what was your first reaction? Could you almost smell it? Could you almost get a sense of the mouthfeel of these things? I mean, forget that they're 30% by weight fat. And in some circles, they're called fat pills. But why are we buying these things? They're definitely not good for our body, but what are we doing here? What are we really buying? And this is a question that should be really thought about deeply in the marketing and development process. What are they buying? I'm going to share with you what we understand customers are buying. First, customers often don't know what they want until they see it. That's the first issue with wow factors, is that we don't know until we see it. We can't articulate. In fact, they're unarticulated needs. And we just can't articulate something. We can't imagine something. But we do know that we make decisions emotionally and have a tendency to justify them rationally. Just a few years ago, 2 scientists, Israeli scientists, won Nobel Prizes. Actually, they're psychologists. They won Nobel Prizes in economics, which is really rare. because I identified how this brain function works in neuroscience with MRI machines. We can now get a sense of when the brain's firing. We're understanding that there's always emotional component. First, you had a gut reaction to those donuts on that conveyor, and then you're going to rationalize it. It's one donut. I've had a rough day, whatever, but you'll probably rationalize the decision that you made emotionally. So understanding that there's an emotional component every decision, that in marketing communications as well as product development, we're looking for those things that can tug on those emotions and do it in an ethical way so that we elicit the response that we want from our customers or potential customers. So a lot of times marketers focus on specs, features, the competition, and not on what the customer really wants. And what customers want is the desired outcome. They want what the product does for them. You can almost imagine like you're renting a product to do a job. That's a common sentiment that's out there in the product development world. So you might just feel I can't take all these Zoom check-ins. I need some comfort food. I need it fast. And therefore the donuts show up and it's not long where you've got the donut and the coffee right in front of you. So there's that emotional component. So this is why we call this often the fuzzy front end, because there are nebulous things that we can't capture. The quantitative research and results are available, but a lot of this is qualitative research. Doesn't make it less valid, but it does make some things fuzzier when we think about this. But here's what we know: people buy outcomes. I don't buy a hammer, I'm buying a deck. I'm buying something to help me get an outcome. And so when you are clearly tuned in to what that outcome is or what the outcomes are, your messaging, your product design, your positioning, all that stuff falls neatly into place. So here's a great example. In 1984, 84 model year, Dodge invented a whole new platform of vehicles called minivans. And within the second year, they were selling 300,000 plus units, which is a big deal. A lot of families with kids, throw them in the back seat of the minivan or the back two seats. But in that first minivan, something showed up called a cup holder. Now, no customer ever asked for a cup holder. They might have asked for some other things, but they didn't ask for a cup holder. The customers aren't able to articulate the need for a cup holder or a microwave oven. And that's not their job, by the way. That's our job, understanding then what their desired outcomes are. So today, if you bought a $100,000 Mercedes and it didn't have a cup holder in it, you would drive it right back to the dealer. So, and keep that in mind when we go through the Kano model, because there's a time element involved with all these things that become wow factors. So there's the wow factor. Forget that they invented a whole new type of vehicle. They had cup holders in it, and that's all people talked about. They were amazed that they were molded into the car door. They were molded into the armrest, and here we are. So, but customers can talk about their needs. I wish there was a way to hold a cup of coffee while driving. I don't have time to cook when I get home. When I get home late, these are desired outcomes. They're not solutions. So that's the first thing we do in marketing research when we're looking for product ideas for our target market. What we look at is, what are they trying to accomplish? What's the desired outcome? What problem we're trying to solve? What do they want to rent our product to do? By the way, I should say this too. From this point forward, none of us should be allowed to talk about a product without identifying its target market in the same sentence. You don't make tennis rackets. You make tennis rackets either for a professional player, an intermediate player, a beginner, a teen, or a boomer. And so it makes no sense to say, yeah, we manufacture tennis rackets. It makes much better sense saying, Yep, we make a line of intermediate and professional tennis rackets. The design elements, the messaging, everything is different based on that target market. So I've disciplined all the marketing departments that I led and managed over the years. I've disciplined all of us, product developers, product managers, to think in terms of a product and its target market in the same context or same sentence, which gives us a discipline, always know that we're making something for somebody and understanding their outcomes. So a beginner doesn't really care about feedback off the racket face. They just want to be able to have a miss hit go over the net. That's a whole different thing than a pro who wants that feedback, who is so tuned and has such a small margin of error, they can handle a very delicate, sensitive area where they hit the ball and it doesn't bother them because they're professionals. So that's a very important distinction to make. And I think that's a highly valued discipline to instill in your organizations. Whom are you trying to serve? So if you would have been Henry Ford back in the early 1900s and asked our customers what they wanted before he basically did a good job inventing a decent internal combustion engine that he put into first a tractor and then a car. But if I asked my customers what they wanted, they would have probably said a faster horse. By the way, Henry was a farmer from Dearborn, Michigan, and he hated horses. So his first thing was build a tractor to get the horses out of his field. And then later on, he saw the opportunity to build cars. So this is where understanding the customer outcomes also leads us into not making these type 1 errors, where we're thinking, okay, customers say they want a faster horse. We don't want a customer to tell us a solution. We don't want them to give us a metric or a measure. We want them to tell us what outcomes they're trying to do. I want something that doesn't need fed, doesn't get sick, and needs something that won't get tired and has lots of horsepower. Those are outcomes. Okay, fine. Then we as designers or product developers or marketers can begin working on the value creation side of that. What does that look like? If we only answer to what customers tell us, we're making more of the same, because a lot of these things are unknown until they see it. So Doctors Cooper and Edgett out of University of Toronto wrote the book on winning at new products. Their publications are used by many organizations in their product development. The research was done, peer-reviewed, highly vetted research. And this is an order on product success, and I'm going to show you what they came up with for product failure factors. The first thing for a successful product is unique, superior, differentiated product or service with a good value. The unique, superior, differentiated. Those fog lights, when I turn the corner, pop on. It's unique. It's superior. The product, in my mind, is differentiated. It sets apart, not just on that one feature, but also on other things in that vehicle. So this is where it's highly correlated, where wow factors contribute to the uniqueness and superiority of a product, at least the perception. And that's what we really are dealing with, the perception of the customer. The second key factor for product success is a strong market orientation. The voice the customers build in. And by voice the customer means you uncover their desired outcomes, and you're going to satisfy those outcomes. And then sharp, early fact-based product definition. Understanding, so we don't get into scope creep or other issues that happen. If we're clearly worked out what customers' outcomes are, and we have that strong VOC built in, and we're looking for unique, superior, differentiated products, that all goes into the fact-based product definition before we get into development. So these are an order of importance, and this is the correlation with the success factors of product, with also what customers are looking for. Now, let's take a look at the number one reasons. By the way, in Cooper and Edgett's research, they claim that 70 to 80% of all new products fail. And by failure, they mean that they've not reached the first year or second year target sales. So in the customer's mind, they had no discernible benefits. There's a poor match of features to customer desires and just a poor, inadequate product definition. So kind of like the opposite side of the success factors. So this is a good checklist if you go back and learn from your past development efforts to see how well you've done on these items and see if they do correlate. And I got into all this because product development, part of marketing was most of my area for many years in industry. And I could never figure out at that time why a product that made sense to us just didn't work in the marketplace and why other products that we thought were going to be okay took off. And so I spent a lot of time figuring out and analyzing and reading this research to get a much better handle so that we could get better and not rely on sheer luck. So, okay, so we're going to turn the page to these wow factors. Okay, so these wow factors. Wow factors are a good predictor of product success. By wow, we're really talking about unexpected. We know in the research by Cooper and others show that having something that's unexpected and delights you builds brand loyalty. It retains current customers, which is much less expensive than recruiting new customers, and it generates higher profits. And some of the studies by Cooper, and he worked with, I think, Booz Allen on this research, but in some cases, organizations claim that new products developed in the last 5 years are contributing 60 to 80% of the current profit margin in that organization. So you can see there's a profit impetus here, but there's also this whole thing about building the brand loyalty around that. So how do we get to these wow factors? And this is where it gets very interesting. We go all the way back to Noriaki Kano in Japan, working on some projects. Excuse me. And I think this person deserves a Nobel Prize. I'm really simplifying it here. You can read his studies. You can go online. There's a lot of stuff written about this, but I'm going to give you an overview of this model, and this should change how you view just about everything in the product and service development side of marketing. So I'm amazed that most textbooks don't teach this. I'm amazed that the engineers I work with might have heard about it, but it's not incorporated into the day-to-day thinking and activity. Some quality people are aware about it, quality assurance folks, because Kano called it the quality model. And you're going to see shortly that it goes much beyond just quality. So work with me here on this graph you see in front of us. So there's the horizontal x-axis. And on this axis is execution. And this is a continuum running from left to right. So left, you didn't do it at all, or you executed very poorly. And all the way to the right, you executed excellent. It was perfect execution. And since this is a continuum, you can actually then be, somewhere along this continuum on execution. You did it not at all. You did it haphazardly or poorly. In the center there, you did it in mediocre fashion. And then you move over in the next quartile. You know what? You did it pretty good. And then finally, you did it excellent. So you understand that's your internal execution and how the customers perceived it. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. Kano decides to put on the vertical or y-axis. Let's talk about customer satisfaction. And this is also continuing. So at the bottom, I'm actually angry. I'm not happy at all. As I move up vertically, before I get to that horizontal line, I'm disturbed, I'm upset, I have discomfort. I get to the middle, I'm indifferent. I get above the middle and I'm happy. Things feel great. And then I get all the way to the top. Things are, I'm very happy. I'm delighted. This is amazing. So this is where the fun begins, and it just pops all sorts of doors open. The first level of quality is this. If you don't do something at all, customers aren't upset by it. I'm sorry, if you do something poorly, you know, customers can be upset by it, but even if you execute it properly, customers are at best indifferent. So let me ask this question. Anybody here stay in a hotel in the last month? If you did, you can raise your hand. Anybody? Okay. When you opened the door to a hotel and you looked in and you saw the beds made, and then you went into the bathroom and you saw all the towels folded, did anybody call home or call a friend or call a neighbor and say, you're not going to believe this? I checked into this Holiday Inn Express and the beds are made and there's towels in the bathroom, they're all folded. No. Why didn't you do that? Because this level of quality is called basic or expected or must-have quality. So if you don't do it, I'm angry. If the bed's not made and the towels are on the floor, I'm angry. But if you do it perfectly, you get no credit for it. Yet this is where most of our quality systems are based on. We look at warranty returns, we look at customer service complaints, we look at letters to the customer service manager or even to the boss. The people are complaining because we haven't met their basic or expected needs. You cannot build products around this. In fact, this is your entrance. This is the minimum price you pay to enter a market. You've got to meet these expected needs. So when I do voice the customer research, I'm actually putting this in a parking lot somewhere else and making sure that engineering or designers are aware that these basic needs must be met. And even if they're met perfectly, we're not going to get any credit for it. So, but we can't ignore them. And so you can't build your entire development process around just meeting these basic needs, because then you're going to have a Me Too ho-hum product that goes against what we were talking about earlier about wow factors and gaining customer loyalty and brand preference, right? So where do you find these things? Go into your organization, look at complaints, look at log your phone calls when people are complaining, look at reviews on Google, other places, but that's the marketplace telling you you haven't met these expected needs. If you have issues, you need to work on those things, because eventually that could sink the brand or the product completely. So that's expected. There's a second set of product that are sometimes called one-dimensional or performance or even features. There's a lot of terms that come out on this. And that is, if you don't execute it at all, people are angry. But as you execute and offer more of these things, more and more, in fact, this is more is better, people get very happy. These are your typical product features. If I bought a computer that had 3 USB-C ports, had a high-res screen, had a really fast solid-state drive, had a high-res screen, I probably said that, and I keep adding more of these performance and features to it that the customers want and they value, and that's always their perception, then I have a product that, on the merits of the product and its features itself, becomes more attractive. So this, where do we learn about this? As I said, the must-haves, we learn from complaints and returns, etc. Here we can learn from surveys and focus groups. We can get a sense of what these things are. So that's not an issue. All right. The fourth is where we get into these wow or delighters, the unexpected. And it goes like this. If I execute poor, I'm not angry at all. In fact, if I don't do it at all, I'm not even aware of it. But if I execute it properly, then and I do it, then I've got a wow factor delighter. And these can be the smallest things in the world. Once I checked into a very fancy hotel as a gift. I won something, an award in downtown Chicago. And when I entered the room, besides the breadbasket and a bottle of wine, there was my hometown newspaper sitting on the bed. It's like somebody at this hotel chain had a process that they looked at where you live and they went out and somehow managed to get that paper in that room before I checked in. That's a wow factor. You're probably the 2,000th person I've told that to. So yes, it was a Carlton hotel. So anyway, so that's a wow factor. The problem I said earlier, we can't identify wow factors. We don't know what they are because we can't articulate it. These are unarticulated needs, but when we see it, we get it. And it's these things that we talk about more often. We either talk about the complaints a lot or we talk about these wow factors. Does this make sense? Now we've got some correlation with wow factors back to the unique differentiated product leading to brand and product loyalty. Now there's some other things that Kano came up with too. There's a zone of indifference. And this is often the sign of weak marketing and lazy engineering, where we'll just put in different features or performance attributes that customers care less about. So it adds no cost or minimum value. We're just indifferent. So you can offer me 6 colors on something, and I don't really care about the colors on it. So I think it's interesting. I just updated my iPhone, and the phone that I chose only had 2 color options, where years ago you could probably have 6 color options. I think they realized that this is something that people can be really indifferent about. Well, if you offered them 6, they'll choose one. But if you only offered them 2, they'll take one of the 2. So there's some intelligence in that marketing decision, which actually has blowback all the way through production and operations management, right? You have one less option to manage. So it actually affects supply chain issues as well too. In fact, good or poor marketing has a huge impact on the entire supply chain, which is a topic for another day. Dana's not done though. He's got another thing called reverse attributes. And these are things that when they're not present, the customer's okay. But when they're present, the customers are not happy. Sorry. Can anybody say Microsoft when they hear this? So Microsoft, I need some water, sorry. With its updates and sometimes sending me messages, taking too long to log in. We don't appreciate that intervention. We really want just the computer to work the way we want it to, and we don't want to be just bombarded with all these error messages or messages. I want to give you another example. In our household, we raised 2 daughters, and my wife and I work. We have both offices here at home. So we had printers. At one time, they were all Hewlett-Packard printers. Today, there's not one Hewlett-Packard printer in our home. Why? Because our marketing people forgot about reverse attributes. All of a sudden, I was getting these messages pop up. Hey, it's Hewlett-Packard. How do you like your printer? I've had it for 2 years. Hey, this is Hewlett-Packard. Don't forget, when you run low on ink, you should contact us or whatever. I bought a $100 printer, and I don't want to be reminded every time I log on that it's there. And so every time you do this to me, I just start feeling like, please quit bothering me. And immature marketing just looks at every opportunity it can to push the brand, when you have to realize there is something called reverse attribute. And so you have to be very careful about doing things that we get taught that kind of makes sense, but we need to every once in a while get that feedback from our customer, letting us know, is this too much? And in this case, I even wrote Hewlett Packard, but they didn't write me back. And I told them why we're not buying their products any longer. So we get that. All right. Now this is the $1 million question. The time element where things lead to a commodity. Look at what Kano does here. What is the significance of this arrow going through from time? It means that today's wow factor in 1984, cup holder in a whole new classification of vehicle in a Dodge minivan became eventually a feature or performance item, and then it eventually became a must-have. So when we talk about this time element, what does that mean to an organization? It means we must continually innovate or we go out of business long term. It means that the things we're doing great today can get copied. And this is especially in intangible products like service industries. It's pretty easy to copy some of that stuff. And so if we don't continually reinvent or listen to that customer, add wow factors to differentiate us, we're standing still and we can get run over completely. So that's a huge takeaway that has, I would think, impact on management at all levels within an organization. It gets me thinking every day, what are we doing? We spend a lot of time working in the business, managing it, operations. How much time are we spending on the business, creating value? And somebody has to have that onus on them in an organization, and it's typically marketing driven or marketing led. So here's the summation, another one from a Kano website. So you can see, how other people would look at this. You can see the 4 different products here, type or quality levels, the basic must-haves, the performance of linear, sometimes it's called that, or one-dimensional, the exciter, delighters, or wow factors, and then the indifferent part, and then that time element running right through. Okay, so I've done all this talking. I'm going to quit sharing screen now, and I'm going to ask you to share a key takeaway here. And then I'm going to throw this back to Lynn before we wrap up. So we've got about 10 minutes, and we promise it will end on time. So what's a key takeaway out of this 50-minute preaching and teaching? Want to share that in the chat box or open up your camera and unmute? Either way, we're open to it. And we need at least one person to go, honestly. Okay, Elizabeth, there's some great things you do, but they are just expected. Absolutely. Yep. That's a great observation. So that a lot of times we give ourselves and pat ourselves on the back for doing them, but they're expected. So the customer goes, yeah, that just got you entry into the game. Absolutely. Thank you. Marketing supports the entire org and not just with ads. Amen. There's marketing, promotion, and communication, but marketing as a discipline does all those things that you reference here. Just from Tanya, Kano reminds me of how people rarely post review if average product. Absolutely right. So what are they posting about? Generally it's at the 2 extremes. It's really fun to complain, because you commiserate with everybody else, but absolutely right. They don't, and that's what my mantra is, that why would I introduce another Me Too ho-hum product? How do I differentiate with these wow factors? Yep. Thank you. That was good. Any others? I hope you found this interesting. Like I said, my voice, I've got allergies really bad, so I apologize for the raspiness of my voice a little bit there. But when you think about this and dig into it, to me, it's just fascinating. And I've had the privilege of sharing this information with students over the years, and many of them still are in touch with me, and they say, thanks for teaching us how the real world works, So I appreciate that opportunity. So if there's anything else, I think we got the chat looked at. So if anything else, go ahead and put it in chat and we'll run it down later. But I'm going to throw it back to Lynn and Eric and let you wrap this up. And thank you all for paying attention and listening. I enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim. I have to say that I did really learn a lot in listening to your presentation. I even took some notes and it was really helpful. I mean, just thinking about some of the everyday kinds of things that you're doing and trying to figure out how do you get the word out there and how do you let people know what you're doing really, really well. So I thought that was really helpful. Okay, so we are recording this and it will be sent out to all the registered participants, but I did want to let people know that we are also on Thursday, August 18th at noon. We will have an information session that will focus on some of our online programs that we offer through the Department of Management and Business Studies. So this information session will focus on our online business management, marketing, organizational leadership, and accounting programs. And so there will be a way to get signed up for that if that's something that you're interested in. And outside of that, are there any just last minute questions before we go?
I just have one. Is Krispy Kreme anywhere in Minnesota? I saw that slide with the donuts and I'm thinking I gotta go get one.
You know, I'm not sure the answer to that, but I thought that was part of the issue that people would go down to the Iowa border, right? So am I right about this, that you have to go to Iowa to get Krispy Kreme?
I think Tanya said that one time it was at the Mall of America. I don't know, but we do have Dunkin'. Absolutely, Elizabeth. Yeah, Dunkin' is a really good second or first choice. Yep. But that is good. I agree.
Very true. All right.